Howdy, my friends. Welcome into this week's episode of Forte Catholic. So glad that you are here. Last week was our first ever episode from overseas when I went to go speak in Ireland. This week, I am back in the States talking with good old Father Anthony Sciarappa, recapping the trip. So while I'm still back in the U.S., there's a lot of stories from my trip over to Dublin, Ireland to speak at a youth conference over there that I wanted to share with all of you. One of the big things that people have been asking about is like, how did this happen? It seems kind of like an interesting scenario. How did I get invited to go over there? Why was I speaking over there? What was it like going overseas for the first time? So a lot of that is answered throughout today's episode. It's more of a storytelling episode today. Father Anthony kind of stepped up to the plate to kind of be an audience proxy, ask some questions, that sort of thing. But we talk about all of it. We talk about me being the loud, annoying American in Ireland, and travel, and the flights, and the ups and downs of feeling fancy, and then feeling like I got stuck into a cage. It was quite a trip. We hope that you enjoy today's story. If you do, please hit subscribe wherever you are watching or listening. Enjoy. Hello there, and welcome into Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Schroll. I am saying hello there, but Father Anthony is doing the meme of Obi-Wan Kenobi coming up from the bottom of his screen saying hello there. Greetings, priest.
Hey, Taylor.
How are you?
I am doing okay. Just had a big staff Christmas party. We do it after all the Christmas stuff, and it was delightful. My staff, they're very silly people, very enjoyable to be around, and it was nice. And now I'm here recording a podcast with Taylor Schroll, my friend.
There has been so much that has happened since the last time we recorded. Last time we recorded was me, you, and Aaron Weber, right for our Christmas episode. Like, Christmas has happened, New Year's has happened. I've been in different countries. We've had ring ceremony. Like, there's been a lot that has happened. Has life slowed down for you now that the holidays are over?
No, there's probably a better way to put this, but everyone's dying. It's just at that time of year this happens a lot. So we've had tons of funerals. So that's been a little bit crazy. Liturgical stuff has calmed down. I'm wearing green again, which is nice. Just normal, ordinary time. But also, you know what? Lent is just around the corner. It's crazy. So hopefully we get a little bit of breathing room here in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, it's been pretty busy ever since Christmas for me.
You and I have been talking about wrestling a little bit. We were talking about a wrestling movie before we hit record. The new A24 movie. What's the name of it with Zac Efron's big
Iron
face?
Claw.
Iron
Claw. It's great. If you want to cry man tears, go watch that movie.
What if a woman watches it? Will she also cry tears?
You know what? I think she'll cry some kind of tears, maybe woman tears. But it's definitely a make dudes cry movie, I think, in my opinion. I'd be fascinated to get more opinions like women seeing this, because there is this whole family dynamic that I would be interested in a female opinion about it. But it's beautiful, sad, beautiful.
And then we were texting yesterday because, we did an episode this past summer where like I got a big introduction into WWE and wrestling because of you and hanging out with you. Yeah. We watched this big event, and my son and I watched The Weakest Link. You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
I can't believe that's still happening. Was that an old episode that you were watching? Is it still going?
So it got rebooted. Like it was a thing when you and I were 10 with the British lady, and then it got canceled. It was like the biggest thing in the world. It ran for like 3 seasons or whatever. And then it got canceled, like all good things. And then 20 years later, they rebooted it with Jane Lynch. She's the mean person now.
Oh,
it's very funny. So we've been watching it. And they took a break during the writer's strike, and then they came back, and they had the 2 episodes we just watched were the Christmas episode and the WWE like All Stars episode. So it was like people that like you and I watched. Seth Rollins and his wife Becky Lynch, ironically enough, right?
Yes,
There's Becky Lynch and Jane Lynch.
Yeah, Becky Lynch.
The 3 black guys, the new kids on the block.
The New Day.
The New Day.
Yeah.
The Miz, who I've heard about, but I haven't learned about because he wasn't involved in this, but apparently everyone hates him. He got voted off like before the game even started. It was very funny.
He's like a classic bad guy. He's been a bad guy in wrestling forever. He's amazing. He was, he got his fame from The Real World. He was like a famous person from that and then worked his way into wrestling. So he's great. He's all-time great.
Such a strange world. So
it is.
we've been chatting about that. There's a reason that I brought it up, but I've forgotten because I'm a little sick. My brain's a little foggy today, and I don't remember what it was.
You were impressed that they were. I mean, one, you found them funny, and then you were surprised how smart they were.
It's unbelievable. Like, just my impression of them is like they're incredibly big and stupid. Like, that's just my impression.
And they're big athletes. Yeah.
Right. And they were one of the smarter groups that we've seen on the show, right? Because it's kind of a collective game, and then there's some backstabbing, but it's like a collective. You're trying to earn money together until you backstab each other, and one person ends up winning it. But it was just, I was just really surprised that they were very smart. But that's been like my return home. I have had one of the crazier like week and a half of my entire life. So last week's episode was live from Ireland, which is a crazy thing to say out loud. It's so crazy to me.
That sounds real impressive.
Right. So what we did last week is like I talked with two of the guys in the Syro-Malabar Rite. They're all Catholics, just a different rite. That like we're in the Latin Rite, the Roman Rite. They're in the Syro-Malabar Rite. We learned last week all about it. If you haven't listened to that, go check it out. Episode 371. Where we dive into like their mass, which is called Kurbana, which like when I was sharing about it, like it looks more like Quran, right? Like it looks like it's not Catholic, but it is. Like it's just their word for mass. It means sacrifice in their language. Malayalam. I've learned all these new Indian words. It was very cool. And so last week we like dove into the rite, but like as people were like following on social media or whatever, everybody was interested in what was going on because it was a very kind of strange setup or unique setup. How I even got there, why I was there, all the like news surrounding. So that's what we're doing today. We're gonna kind of walk through my trip. I'm gonna share these things with you. You're gonna ask some clarify. You're gonna be like the proxy for our listeners today.
Cool.
Do you think filling in for mostly lay people is something you can do today? Can you be a lowly lay person today?
Okay, I just gotta really dumb myself down. I've gotta really just lower myself. Try to forget my magnificent and sparkly ontology. I'll do my best. To speak for the people.
Right, just like the WWE stars on the Weakest Link. I think they sent their best and brightest. Like they probably do have some big dumb people, but they sent their best and brightest. So I need you to be like wrestling smart today, not pre-smart.
Okay.
I just need you to be like wrestling smart today. All right, not dumb, but just not your normal self. Okay, so how all this happened? Because ultimately, I'm a very large white man who ended up going to speak. I was the only white person in the building. Well, that's not true. We'll get to some of the people that worked at this building later in the show. We'll talk about where the building, because that's a whole other story in and of itself. I was the only white person invited to be there. So it's me and like hundreds of Indian people in Ireland, which is not what you'd expect. Right?
I did not realize there was a big Syro-Malabar presence in Ireland. I had no idea. Yeah, that's fascinating.
So one of the things that I learned while I was there in Ireland is like it's a pretty historically Catholic country. Yeah. But as a foreigner and as like somebody that doesn't really pay attention to world news, all I kind of knew anecdotally before any of this was that like Ireland used to be a very Catholic country, has very deep roots, like St. Patrick. Like we all kind of know these stories, right? He did something with snakes. Like we've heard these stories.
Oh yeah. Question. Did you see any snakes there?
Not a single snake. He did a great job.
That's right. That's right. Further proof that the Catholic Church is the true church. No snakes were found in Ireland.
No snakes in Ireland, exactly. To be fair, I live in Texas and we have a lot of snakes. I don't see them either. Like I'm not going out to hang out and look for them.
You're like, you have snake blindness. You just can't see them.
We've had enough like random people show up during this recording. I'm just imagining looking out this window as a snake just sitting there. Like, hey,
snake just watching you, waiting.
So over the last like maybe 10 years, like there's been some big like political things that seem to go against the church, right? Like gay marriage, abortion, all becoming legal. Like it's becoming less and less of a Catholic state, a Catholic country.
Yeah.
And so like my understanding going in is that it had become very secular. And going over there, that's very true. And like I think it's one of the things that's similar to the States is like I was primarily in Dublin, and Dublin being a big city is primarily secular, but like out in the countryside, it's still pretty Catholic. So I'm like, okay, like that, we have similar things here. Like big cities tend to be a little bit more liberal, progressive, and like not as much into faith. Out in the countryside or the great state of Texas, we're still kind of doing our thing, right? A little different up north with you. So the reason that a lot of the Sierra Malabar people are there is one, it's kind of twofold. A lot of the crew that I was with, like 97% of the adults of the young people that I was working with came over as nurses, because a lot of Irish nurses found better work in like the US and Canada, like better paying jobs for nursing. So they migrated from Ireland to the US or Canada or like other places in Europe. So it left this huge, like there were no nurses left in Ireland.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So they, ironically enough, they started paying more because they needed to get people. And so this whole group of like the Sierra Malabar community kind of moved all together, and they live together. They share their culture together. There's Indian restaurants, there's Indian food, all in kind of this, kind of like a Chinatown would be, or like, like a Italian place. Like I've been to Pittsburgh with you. Like there's like Italian places of town.
We got like our little Italy and
sure,
Germantown and all that jazz.
Right.
Yeah.
So pretty similar to that, right? So they came over, but then also it was like an evangelical thing. So like they came for work, but also like here's a country that's Catholic. We're incredibly Catholic from like, the southeastern part of India. And so like the biggest group of Catholics in Ireland are Sierra Malabarite Catholics. Isn't that crazy to you?
Yeah. It is very crazy. It kind of shows you, like, because you had the Roman Catholic Church like evangelizes Ireland, and then there's Vikings and that stuff happens, and so then the Irish come back down and re-evangelize.
My
Europe,
favorite sentence you've ever said on this show is there were Vikings and a lot of stuff happened. Like that, and they just moved on. It was the greatest thing ever.
Accurate history. We're going quick, and then all of a sudden, like from this like corner of the world that like you would never expect, are coming and re-evangelizing Ireland. And it's just kind of like you see these like cycles in the church. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So how did I get there? How did a white American from Texas go to Dublin, Ireland to speak at a Sierra Malabar
assume a
church?
plane, though a boat is possible.
There you go. I didn't swim.
It's a real easy question, Taylor. Like, yeah.
Maybe when I was skinny, but I couldn't swim over there this time. I'm a little fat these days. I'm the size of a small boat, so maybe I could have made it on my own.
Maybe you just like float along the tides for long enough. Taylor's gone for 15 months and washes up on the shores of Ireland.
The sharks don't eat me because they're just confused. Like,
like what? No.
This is weird. So, I have done some work with the Sierra Malabar Rite here in the States. So, 3 years ago, right before COVID happened, I got booked by a Sierra Malabar Rite priest here in the U.S. Their diocese is the United States because it's a smaller rite here in the States. So they have churches all over the world. I bet there's one in Pittsburgh. I know there's at least one in Houston. I met this priest who was based in Houston. Then he became based in California. Now he's based in South Carolina. Like you get moved around the city of Pittsburgh and kind of outstanding areas. His diocese is the United States of America. So you can go wherever.
That's a very different gig right there. Yeah.
Right. So I was booked to do a retreat, like go lead a retreat for his junior high school kids here in Houston. Just like an hour drive, go over there for their day, lead a retreat. But then COVID happened. So that got canceled. And then he got moved almost immediately after. But he became the diocesan youth guy for the diocese of the Sierra Malabar Rite Catholic Church here in America. So remember when we were all doing things only on Zoom? Like Mass was on Zoom and meetings were on Zoom and therapy was on Zoom. And like, remember that and how much we all hated it? But we were trying, right? Like we were really trying.
We were doing our darndest. Yeah, absolutely.
So one of my, COVID was a really rough time, but one of my favorite moments from that time period is I gave a talk for it was like they had a national youth event for the Sierra Malabar Rite teens here in the States on Zoom. So right now, you and I are on Zoom. There's two of our faces. Imagine me, you're not here, but maybe you can watch, and me and 250 like Indian kids from across the US. That was my introduction to the Sierra Malabar Rite Church. So we did some introductions. I gave my talk, and then usually, that thing that like a lot of like Catholic speakers say, or like teachers will say, maybe even some priests are like, you go give a homily or you lead a talk at a retreat, and you're like, You've probably heard it. Oh, I got just about as much of it out of it from them as they did from me.
Sure,
and I'm like, that sucks. You're not very good at your job then, because
you should be giving more. You're the guy who's being paid to do stuff.
Exactly.
You get money, not like experience or like good feelings. Now do your job, right? Yeah.
Right. So I've always hated that saying, but we did a Q&A after, and my deal with them was, okay, you can ask me a question, anything about faith, like we usually do, right? But then I'm going to ask you something. It's the one time in my life where I learned about as much from them as they did from me, because they were teaching me about the right, so it was just very funny to me that I hate that. And I was like, oh, I could truly say it about this one moment. So that event did well. I did another event with them. And then, months ago, I get an email like, hey, would you like to come speak at this event for the Syro Malabar Rite Catholics in Dublin, Ireland, and again, and at this location. And we'll talk about the location later. That's a tertiary part of the story. We'll get to that towards the end of the show. But I'm like, how did this happen, right? Because I have one in to the Syro Malabar Rite, and it's here in the States, and I've actually never met like a Syro Malabar Rite person in person. It was all over Zoom. Like it was intended to be in person, but it never happened. So I'm like, how did this happen? And sure enough, come to find out, the priest that I met here, like my primary in to the Syro Malabar Rite Church, the guy that invited me to do all these events here in the U.S., he went and spoke at this conference last year, and I guess for some reason spoke highly of me. So he was the connection to why I got this. I ended up getting booked to go lead these talks at this conference. So that's how it all happened. That's how I became the large Texan.
I don't know. So I don't know a lot about the Syro Malabar Church. I have not personally met a Syro Malabar Rite priest. And you, up to this point, had met one, which makes me think that there's actually only one priest, and you just happened to bump into him. You're actually been talking to the Syro Malabar Pope the entire time and got really lucky. And he's like, oh, I know one white guy who can talk, and that'll be new. I think that's what happened. You met the only Syro Malabar priest.
You joke, you jest. First, just for clarity's sake, again, they're Catholic. Their Pope is our Pope. Their Pope is Pope Francis.
Of course, yes.
but it's funny that you should say that. I think you're pretty close to right. I'm not even going to lie, because
there's probably a lot of them in India, I'm sure, but there's one in America, and he happened to go to Ireland that one time. Yeah,
there's not. All this stuff has happened since all this. Like I don't even know if I told you this. Our new associate pastor is from India, and he's from the Syro Malabar Rite. And so I asked my friend this priest that I've been friends with for like 3 years now. His father Rajiv, and I texted him. I was like, look. India is a huge place. The U.S. is a huge place. There's literally no reason that you would say yes to this question. But we have a new priest. His name's Father Rupesh. This is his first time in the States. Do you happen to know him? And I texted him. And he's a busy guy. About 9 hours later, he texted me back in all caps. We went to seminary together.
It is a small world. There's two priests. They went to seminary at the same time.
Exactly. But to your point about Father Rajiv, I think he's pretty high up, because and I just saw this post yesterday, and I've been meaning to call him. So I don't know if the bishop. I don't know if I would assume the U.S. Syro Malabar has their own bishop. I think that's how it works.
Yeah, I'm sure something like that. Patriarch, something.
They just elected a new one, and it's a friend of his. There's pictures of them saying mass together. So he's not that guy, but he's right next to that guy. You know what I mean? So So apparently, his word has some sway. So that's why I went. So now let's hit this timeline from when I'm leaving. So fun little fact from the night before. So just the week that I'm leaving. So I left on a Thursday. Wednesday was my daughter's 9th birthday. She also went back to school for the school year on that day. And our track team had our ring ceremony where we got our state championship rings from the state championship we won way back in May. We got our rings. We had a big ceremony. It was great. So all that was school and ring ceremony was happening Wednesday. So we celebrated with my daughter on Tuesday, did daddy-daughter date. We went to lunch. I took her ice skating for the first time ever. And it was the cutest thing. She did so great. She glued to the wall for the first 30 minutes. Because we don't have ice here. We're not in Pittsburgh.
Dad Daddy, why is the water cold?
So, but she's been rollerblading for years. So, pretty similar, just more slippery, right? Because it's a different surface. By the end of we were there for like an hour, 50 minutes, hour and a half. By the end, she was speeding around the place, cutting through the middle, hadn't touched the wall. Just
nice.
An incredible day. So we go from celebrating daughter, this big first moment, to going back to school, getting ready to go to Ireland, having our ring ceremony, tearing up that night. And then the next morning, I go and I get on my plane. And I've mentioned it before, how I usually travel when I go to speak or whatever here in the States is we have essentially a bus stop with planes here in College Station. You've been to it. You flew into it.
I've been there.
Once, right?
It is a bus stop with planes. That's all it really is.
Our bus goes in the air for a little bit over to Dallas.
Yes.
So the only place we fly is to Dallas. But then Dallas is an international airport, and it's American Airlines hub, which is who I fly with. So from Dallas, I can have a one-way flight to anywhere, right? So
that's great. Yeah.
One-way flight from Dallas to Dublin. The only drawback is I have a very long layover. So I fly to Dallas Thursday morning, but the cool thing about my long layover is I have enough airline status, I fly enough that I have now hit the third level of 5 in status with American Airlines. So it's I'm getting upgraded domestically a lot, but I had learned after I booked the flights, oh no, upgrades, these automatic upgrades for status people from coach to first class or coach to business class or whatever, do not happen on international flights. Bum, bum, bum.
Oh no. Yeah.
I'm a very large human being. I don't fit in coach. And now I'm about to take an 8-hour flight, longest flight I've ever taken in my life. And I'm going to be sitting in coach. So but I learned this weeks before, so I had accepted this fact. So I'm just going to, I had made up my mind. I'm just going to accept this fact. I'm going to enjoy it while I'm there. The flight might suck, but it is what it is. But I have high enough status. I don't have high enough status here in the States to go into the primo airline lounges in the airport. Right. So typically when I'm in an airport, I have to, go to a restaurant or find a place to sit and just hang out on my computer or whatever. But I have high enough status that when I'm flying international, I get to go to the flagship lounge of American Airlines. This place is unbelievable. It's like a fancy hotel inside the Dallas Fort Worth airport. Free food. And I'm talking if I had to pay for it, it'd be $75, $100, very nice food. Yeah. Hundreds of bottles of alcohol.
Nice.
Actual alcohol, beer, wine, champagne. There's incredible seating. There's plugs everywhere. There's a nap room. There's a man cave with multiple TVs. This place is huge. It's essentially the bottom floor of a fancy hotel. Incredible.
Yeah.
So I'm I'm going to go hang out here. And that's what I do. I go hang out in the lounge. I'm having a great time. I'm living my life has very little luxury, but I am feeling luxurious sitting in this Dallas Fort Worth airport, right? Here's where everything goes south very quickly. I have an incredible 3 to 4 hours in the lounge.
Yeah.
And then I'm about, we're an hour away from my flight. So I'm hey, I'm about to head over to the gate. Because usually boarding starts about 30 minutes before. But what I didn't know, because this is my first international flight, is that boarding starts an hour before. So I'm in the lounge.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I get 2 phone calls from 2 numbers that I don't recognize. And I have it turned off on my iPhone. If there's a number I don't recognize, it goes straight to voicemail. But if you call me twice, it'll notify me. So I call back and they're hey, this is the gate. And so I'm thinking the worst. I'm thinking did they leave? My it says we're not boarding, we're not leaving for an hour, but it's boarding starts in 10 minutes. And I'm 15 minutes away. So I'm boarding starts in 10. I'm not going to be late, right? But I'm thinking the worst. And then they're oh, we were calling about an upgrade to business class.
No,
but you weren't here, so we gave it to someone else.
Oh no, devastating.
Anthony, I had already accepted that I was going into coach.
No, it's not the same now.
You know how different it is when you tell me that I had something, and because I wasn't physically in your person, you get somebody else. And I need to tell you, just as background, when I usually get upgraded, they just automatically do it in the app. They just change your seat. Like there's no. For the first time, they're like, no, we have to do it in person, or if you have to answer the phone call the first time. I called back within 2 minutes. They had given away my upgrade. I'm sick. I start sweating. My heart drops. I had just lived like the most 4 luxurious hours of my life. And now because I was like 10 minutes later than they wanted me to be, I was not late. I was never going to be late, but I was 10 minutes later than they wanted me to be. Now I'm going to have to sit my big old butt and coach for the next 8 hours. I was so upset, man.
That's terrible customer service. If I were them, I'm like, you know what? Sorry, we called the wrong number. And then you would have been much happier if you had no idea.
If I had never known. Exactly. I would have been fine, right? So I'm trying to like keep my composure, right? But I get over to the gate, 10 minutes later, and I'm like, you called me about an upgrade. I'd like an upgrade. They're like, they're all gone. And I'm like, I'm like, it's one of those things. Like I'm frustrated, but I'm like, I need to shut up. So it doesn't get bad, right? I'm just gonna accept my fate.
Kick you off the plane or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to Ireland anymore. So I get on the plane, and dude, it gets worse.
No,
I go to my chair, and I have had the worst luck with who I sit next to. I've mentioned this on the show over the last like 5 or 6 months. Like when I was coming to fly up to you, the largest human being I've ever sat next to to me on the flight to come see you. Same situation here. Where like, I'm not a small person. I understand that. So I can't complain incredibly, but how on a plane with 300 people on it are the 2 biggest people sitting, we're locked arms. We're arm in arm. It's not just that I'm fat and I understand that I'm overweight, but like I can't do anything about my bone structure. My shoulders are just wide. We don't fit. I am so upset. I'm so upset. I'm asking the flight attendants. I see seats up there. Can I go up there? I was supposed to get an upgrade. I'm supposed to be up there. At 10 minutes in, the guy, the big old dude next to me tries to make a joke. He's like, we're glad you're tall. I'm going to sleep, so we can sleep on you on the flight. I'm dying. I'm dying. Just dying. And then I think you're gonna like this part of the story. Maybe some of the listeners won't, but you're gonna love this.
Okay.
And then the smallest little gay man I've ever seen in my life, who works for American Airlines, walks right up to me. The Lord worked through that small little gay man down that day.
Beautiful.
The Lord did beautiful things. He walked up. He said, "Are you Taylor Schroll?" And I said, "Here I am, Lord." I mean, yes, I am. And he said, "Here's your new seat. You can go up there."
Oh my gosh! What a roller coaster!
I had just taken my blood pressure medicine like an hour before. I'm only supposed to take one at a time. I took it again as I sat down. I was like, my heart might explode. I need to take this again. It was one of the craziest experiences. And then I sat there. Can I tell you how great that flight was? It's the longest flight I've ever been on. 8 hours. I had a TV in front of me. I could lay down almost completely flat. Oh, it was beautiful. I felt like the richest man alive after the worst 45 minutes I've experienced in months.
So much based on expectations. It's, wow.
Seriously. Like, accepted my fate and then just like, hey, you know that hope thing you struggle with? Here's a sliver. Not. It was incredible. So, fly there. The flight's great. The flight attendants, knew the situation I was in. They were super nice to me the rest of the trip. So I land in Dublin. Mm-hmm. There's a 6-hour difference between Texas and Dublin. So 5-hour difference from you, but 6-hour difference from me.
Yeah, significant for sure. My goodness, yeah.
I land at what is midnight to my body, like midnight in Texas, which is 6 a.m. in Dublin.
Oh yeah, and
I can't sleep in not my bed or not a bed, like a hotel. Like I can't sleep on the plane. I just can't do it. I can't sleep in the car. Just never been able to. So I get there at midnight, and like usually I'm going to bed around midnight or 1. So like I'm starting to get tired, but I'm not like exhausted, Right. But one of the guys comes and picks me up, drops me off at this hotel. Dude, it's called the Castle Knock Hotel. And close your eyes, picture the Castle Knock Hotel. That's what it looks like. Yeah.
Oh, so I pictured a castle.
Yeah, that's what it is. It is the widest hotel I've ever seen. I've been in some like tall, like downtown hotels. They're huge. It's one of the bigger hotels I've ever seen, and it's just incredibly wide. It looks like a Irish castle. It's unbelievable.
Cool.
Beautiful place. One of the guys from the Sierra Malabar Rite that's involved with this youth movement is the night manager there. So I'm guessing he helped out with this, right? I got to talk to him.
Nice.
Incredible place, super fancy. I'm living this like I don't get this. I'm recording this in a old garage with fabric from Joann's behind me. Like I don't live a luxurious life,
Mm-hmm.
I get to the hotel and I'm tired. So I sleep I get there around 7 a.m. So I sleep from 7 to 1. And then I wake up and I'm like, fine. Because like, even at home, everybody talks about the jet lag. I'm like, I do that all the time. I do it here. I'll go to bed at 4 o'clock and wake up.
Sleep schedule.
Yeah, exactly. So like,
I never sleep well. This is normal. Whatever.
I was like, I can get 6 hours here. I can get 3 hours here. Just kind of put it together. It's fine.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It was never too bad. But I wake up, I do a lot of the work that I have to like finish up for the conference. I like, making like I knew what I was talking about, but I had to like make sure I had all my notes right. I had to make sure I get like the slides, the keynote stuff is always the last thing that I do. Get everything ready. And then I do the thing that we talk about here in the States a lot, but I wasn't nervous, but maybe I should have been. And ultimately nothing happened. But that thing that we do, like Catholic Twitter meetups here in the States?
Sure.
I did that in Ireland. Our friend Jago Moran over from Ireland. We've been friends on because of like Game of Favorites and like Peter Schmidt's show that you and I have done before. So we're in like this young adult online community here, and we've talked so much on like FaceTime or whatever. We've texted a bunch that like I felt pretty comfortable with them, right? But I'm like, that's it. I'm in a different country, and a person I've never met is going to come pick me up, and we're going to hit it out of the town.
Yeah, cool.
So he picks me up. Great guy, way taller than I thought. Just that's a personal note, doesn't really matter, but that happens a lot with people you meet from the internet. I'm like, wow, you're taller than me. That doesn't happen often.
In your mind, everyone you meet is smaller than you, so it's always a surprise.
I mean, statistically, it's correct. So, the only people I assume to be bigger than me are whoever's sitting next to me on American Airlines flight. That's my new assumption. So, like that first night that we're there, we do all the stuff that you're like supposed to do, or a lot of the stuff that you're supposed to do when you go to Dublin, Ireland. So he takes me out. We go to the first thing that we do is that St. Patrick's Cathedral. We talked about him earlier. Kind of a big deal in Ireland, a big deal in the church. Yeah. We go to his cathedral, and when you and I did our episode from your church, we talked about how that's one of the prettier churches and one of the oldest churches I've ever been in because it's huge. It looks like a castle, and it was born. It was birthed by the Lord, the virgin birth of your church. But like on the East Coast, northeast of the U.S., there's some very old churches.
Yeah. In comparison to Texas, absolutely, yeah.
So like, give me an idea. Either your church, I think you told us, or like, some of these churches what's the oldest church you think you've been in? Maybe New York, around Pittsburgh.
Okay, so our church began construction in like the 1920s, 1930s, finished up in like 1960 because World War II happened. That was like a whole thing.
I heard of that.
And so, So some of our churches, I mean, if they were originally founded in like the 1800s, maybe. You would be the oldest church, probably late 1800s as far as like parishes being founded. Those buildings have burned down, but that's, the gist of it. That's about as old as you get around here, I think.
Yeah, so like 16, 1700s, right? And like that's been my experience. Like I think I've been to some in New York that just from my memory, I think we're like maybe 16, 1700s. And then like, the Alamo and stuff like that, like pretty old. But nothing like St. Patrick's in Dublin.
Yeah.
The year of our Lord, 1109 is when this church started. I mean, it's almost 1,000 years ago. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I go to this church and like, I thought your church was big and beautiful, and it is, but nothing in comparison to this place. It's like double in length, maybe a little taller, huge, beautiful church, takes up like multiple city blocks in the middle of this metropolis in Dublin. We go in, they're doing evening prayer. So like Vespers, right? Just like what you pray, right? Maybe slightly different because this is a Catholic cathedral, and it's been Catholic for years and years and years. But like within the last 10 to 20, there's been this new thing that I didn't know existed called the Church of Ireland. So you've heard of the Church of England. Yes. It's kind of a big deal. Okay. So like the Anglican Church and the whole deal of like, I want to marry somebody else. And the Pope says, no. And like, I'm the Pope now. And then you kill your wife or whatever. You know, like that whole story.
Yes. Yes.
Ireland has had a very similar thing where like they became a state church. Now Ireland has a state church. And so just like Anglican looks and feels very similar to Catholicism, at least in like the rites, mass or whatever they call it. But essentially it was Vespers, right? Sung Vespers. So I'm in this place that's like historically Catholic, beautiful church. And because it's not Catholic, it was beautiful. Like musically wise.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, okay. I won't push back too hard on that. Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, you talked about the great music at your church, but that is not the universal experience here of the church in America.
Yeah. Most parishes, at least in the U.S., not the best. Yeah, fair.
So, like, I mean, like professional singers, like professionals and like hired, trained singers are singing every part of Vespers. So they're singing the Our Father, they're singing the song, a lot of the evening prayers, the Psalms and Our Father and other hymns, that sort of thing. Everything is sung. It's beautiful. And like, people who listen to the show know that like a lot of my faith is like, because I know it's right. And because, this whole idea of like choosing to love, even if I don't feel it, I don't feel it a ton. Like there's just not a ton of, but man, small handful of moments. I got goosebumps now. Standing in that huge church, this historical church in a different country, like I felt the universality of our faith. I felt the rich history of our faith in a way that I typically don't. And just like how God is still moving in this place that, is old, but also having some struggles. Like, and just this beautiful, beautiful choir. So it's like, I feel God in this Applebee's tonight. Like it was, or Chili's or whatever it was. Like this beautiful church. Like it was one of the like rare moments in my life that I was like, God is present right here, right now, and I can feel it. It's always true, but I don't always know it. So just a beautiful, beautiful experience.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, that's kind of one of those things that one, it's pilgrimage, right? So going to another part of the world to experience the faith, even if it's church of whatever, but it's still like that. Going, the Lord does in a particular way bless us when we make an extra effort to go somewhere to experience the faith. So kind of basically, not that it was like your main goal. Your main goal is to do a gig, right? But to go on pilgrimage and to experience all of that and to see all that. Yeah, I mean, that's why we use images and when we can have nice music because it reminds us of the deeper things of the faith. So yeah, that's super cool. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, thank you. You're very generous in saying that my main goal there was to do my gig. That was second. The first was what we did right after. We went and got Guinness in a pub. So I did it. Jacob took me to this pretty famous pub in Dublin. And just like everything you would think, man. I don't feel God often, but I felt him twice that night.
At Vespers and in that Guinness.
In that Guinness for sure. Just the experience of it. They pour it. And like one of the differences here is like if you got a lot of foam on your beer here, you'd be annoyed. But it's like part of the process there. It's like if you and I sat down and got a Guinness, like Jacob and I did.
Yeah.
Like part of it is you get the beer, you sit there and chat with your guy, your bro for 3-4 minutes, and then you cheers and drink
it's like a little ritual thingy.
Yeah. So just a great experience. And then also after that, like we were all within a few blocks of St. Patrick's. So here I am thinking, this is the most beautiful church I've ever seen. This has to be the biggest, coolest church in all of Dublin. We go 3 more blocks. There's another one just like it called Christ Church. It's insane. It's just insane. Like how much history in the Catholic Church that Ireland has. So what we're going to do is we haven't taken a break yet. We're going to take a little break. When we come back, we're just going to pick up right where we are in the story and we'll start talking about, the gig, why I was there. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. If you have any connection to your parish, your ministries in your local church, a local Catholic school, a diocese, whatever, and you are looking for a speaker or worship leader for an event here in 2024, I'd love to come join you, come help you guys with whatever you are doing. I've been speaking, leading worship for youth events, church missions, parish missions, retreats for over a decade now, just like the one that we're talking about here in my trip to Ireland. So So I would love to get into contact with you guys. The best way to do that is fortecatholic.com/booking. Tell me a little bit about your event. There's a little form that you can fill out there. It goes right to my inbox. I'd love to come help you, whether you're at a big diocesan event or a small parish or anywhere in between. I love doing the show and I love podcasting, but I love even more being with people and trying to grow closer to the Lord with people in the flesh. So again, fortecatholic.com/booking to find out more about what I can do, how I can help you, and to get in contact with me and hopefully move forward from there. All right, enjoy the rest of today's episode. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Schroll, and that is still Father Anthony McAllen Sciarappa. We had to give you an Irish.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare. You can use any kind of goofy Italian stereotype you want, but once you give me a Mick, then you're in trouble, buddy.
That sounded really racist, and I don't know why.
Because it was a little bit, but you're allowed to do that with Irish and Italians.
But you can't be mad at the priest, Father Anthony, because again, he's being a dumb layperson today. So you have to be mad at the lay people.
And all lay people hate the Irish. That's
what is happening?
Oh no!
So I'm able to go to sleep the evening after the pub and after the churches. Wake up the next day, and I go to the conference. It's a 2-day youth conference, and like youth there being more like World Youth Day, like 16 to 28, that sort of like age range from all over Ireland. So they're coming from Galway, my pretty little Galway girl, like all the way over from Galway. They're from Dublin. They're from Northern Ireland, which is its own thing that I was told not to talk about.
Yeah. They were orange. It's not. Yeah.
So from all over Ireland. They came all together there in Dublin. So I have to say, the first session, I'm sitting there, and there are two like you've been to a youth conference, right? Like you go up, and there's
been to many, yes.
Yeah. So you go up, and like the MCs are usually like the hype people, and they're fun, and they're getting the crowd going, and like younger than typically the speakers are, right? Like they're kind of up and coming, that sort of thing. So there's these two, and they're doing a great job. These two MCs, and just nothing from the crowd, just nothing. Like hundreds of kids just sitting there completely dead. It's early in the morning. I had heard that like a lot of these kids are like not super into the faith. Like it was a wide range. There's some super into the faith, but a lot not, because of kind of that secular culture kind of creeping into their life. So saw that immediately, and I was like, because if like their own crew, like the coolest and hippest among them that are these two MCs are getting nothing, what's the foreign white guy supposed to do?
Yeah. It'd be one thing if you said they were doing like a good job. It'd be one thing if they're doing a bad job. You're like, sweet, this is gonna be great for me.
No, but they were incredible.
Oh no.
So I immediately thought of our friend Aaron Weber that you and I talked to about some of his bombs, and I'm like, I think this might be it. I think this might be one of the biggest bombs about to happen. And sure enough, I get up there, and I typically start with a lot of jokes, and I heard as many laughs as I do when I tell a joke on the podcast.
Oh no!
Even if people are listening to the podcast and laughing, I never hear it. That's about as much as I heard. So I'm like, all right, I guess we're just going to get serious, because when the jokes fail, maybe it's not connecting culturally. Maybe it's just too early in the morning. Maybe it's not what they want. Like, I don't know. But you know, it does work, the charisma. So I went into my talk, and that was the goal for the first talk. And I'm like, towards the end of it, I start catching a groove a little bit, and I start getting a little bit of like eyes and connection. I could tell people are in deep thought. And the thing that I started doing is something that like people here on the show are probably pretty used to. I just started yelling a lot. And like, because it's really hard to sleep when I'm yelling at you.
Yeah.
And the strange thing about it is like, usually when I give a talk, it's like I have some dynamics, but I'm not usually like, on the show when I'm yelling, I'm like complaining a lot. I don't complain as much in talks. Like it's just not.
That's
just
probably good. You don't want to go up there and air your grievances to all these our children.
Exactly. So
let me tell you about American Airlines and the big people I'm sitting next to. Like that's not ideal.
Y'all ever sit next to fat people? That's just not how a Catholic speaker talks. Maybe a Catholic podcaster, but not a Catholic speaker. So, I started laughing at myself, like internally, because what I'm doing is like I'm yelling, but it's not stuff that should be yelled. It's it's like I need to do it just for the engagement, but like I'm yelling at them. Like my tone says you're going to hell, but I'm literally saying the opposite. I'm saying that like, the worst moment in your life is when God died for you, not just when you're being a perfect Catholic boy or girl. Like I'm yelling the beauty of the gospel. And so I can tell that they're like intrigued, but also a little confused, which I think worked. Because they were in. They were like, why is this man yelling at me about how much God loves me? It's strange.
He's like, Jesus loves you so much. Right. He's like, thank you.
So I finished the talk and I'm like, okay, like rough start, but we made it through. I feel like we made some headway. I get to right after we get to go to lunch. And they take me to this really nice lunch place, kind of a buffet with like a bunch of different cuisines. And I tried a lot of the like Indian food and like Chinese food and like a lot of this stuff, right? So go back to the conference. And like right when I get back to the conference, like the musicians are playing, the kids are starting to get into it. Like it's the afternoon, they've woken up, they've eaten, they're warmed up, they're ready to go, right? So like even then, like even before I go up to speak again, like I can tell, like the vibe in here is different. Like we're moving somewhere, right? So I give that second talk, and it's a talk that I'll probably dive into some of it because it's a brand new talk that I wrote. Usually when I go travel, I'm like playing the hits, right?
Right.
But it's a brand new talk. I'll probably do it on next week's show. But it was ultimately about the like our three primary relationships: relationship with God, relationship with others, and relationship with ourselves. And that evening, relationship with God, they're like, okay, some of them are in, some of them are out. But when I start talking about relationship like with other people, all of them on the edge of their seats. Like, I'm talking about dating. I'm talking about relationships. I'm talking about marriage. I'm talking about vocation. And they're like, we're in. Like we're got to the practical part, right? Like they're super in. So like even throughout the rest of the weekend, anytime somebody came up, I'm like, oh, I really like the dating part. I'm like, great. I'm glad it connected.
They do. These young people, that's all they're thinking about.
Right, exactly. Like the jokes start landing, like we're cruising, right? So that session, the next session, the next day, it's all going very well. So we leave that. And then that evening, one of the guys, the Sciarappa, right, that's been kind of like driving me around, kind of like my handler, right, takes me out to dinner at like an Indian restaurant, like legit Indian. I end up like learning that this guy owns multiple like authentic Indian restaurants around town, authentic Indian shops and stores and all this stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I go, and before this trip, I had an Indian food one time in my entire life. Have you ever had Indian food?
I don't think I have. No.
Really? But I'm surprised. I assumed that your answer would be yes, because you tend to eat a little bit more exotic things than I do.
Right. Yeah. I've been, privileged to be able to do that. My mom owns restaurants and all that jazz and stuff. But like, I'm trying to think like an Indian place. No. I've definitely had like different like Asian foods and stuff, but I don't think I've been to like an Indian place. No.
Do you eat like I feel like you used to order something a lot, Thai or something? Another
like,
pad
Asian
Thai.
Cuisine? I'm a big pad Thai fan.
That's right.
Yeah,
okay.
But that's
so like because of that, I think I just kind of assumed you had a little bit more culture than me, but apparently not. You're a dumb layperson just like me. So, so I go and I have biryani, and it's rice and meat. And the best part is that there's two sauces because I love variety in my food. So like you would have one. It was like a sweet and savory sauce, which like. Rice and chicken, you don't typically think sweet. I guess maybe a little bit like sweet and sour chicken or whatever.
Sure,
but like you would dip it all into the savory sauce, kind of a little spicy, and then dip one in. It's like a yogurt-based sauce, which sounds weird, but it was so good. 4 for 4. 2 appetizers that we had I loved. One was like a kebab. One was like a meat patty with like a really spicy sauce. And this was my first time ever eating a full meal of Indian, because the only time that I had it before was when I was in college, and I worked with an Indian pastor, non-denominational pastor, and his wife cooked. And I ate about a fourth of what I could eat because it was so spicy. Indian food is so incredibly spicy. But you ever sat across from somebody that speaks another language and you know that they're talking about you, but you kind of have an idea what they're saying, but not really? Yes, I definitely know that the guy across from me that ordered for me, because I didn't, they didn't speak any English. I didn't, whatever. He was like, no spice for big white man. That's essentially what he said. So they made it less spicy.
The waiter was like, the waiter was like, you didn't need to tell me that.
Right. Yeah. They looked and they were like, we know what to do here. So had my Indian food, went home, and here's the first time that it was a mixture of two things. It was a mixture the first time that the time change started messing with me, but also like the first time that that I had a reason to stay up. So because of the time change, my Houston Texans, my NFL team, were playing in the most important game that we've played in since 2019. Like since the last time we were good. We've been the dregs of the NFL for years. And we played a game in the last week of the season, which is why I was there, that if we win this game, we're in the playoffs. If we don't, we lose. So my whole plan, I took my sleeping medicine. I was like, I have to go to sleep. I have a big day tomorrow. Right. So I took my sleeping medicine around midnight. The game was going to go from about 1 a.m. to 4 a.m.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm trying to fall asleep, but I just can't. I'm wired. I know I should, but I'm wired because for my body, it's like 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. I'm not tired, I was tired the previous night because I had traveled, but this day was a lot more chill. So I'm not tired. I ended up watching this entire football game. I'm up till 4 o'clock in the morning. No. my Texans won. The next day, something else happened. We ended up going from like out of the playoffs to not only in the playoffs, but to being division champions for the first time in 5 years. Just incredible. So then I wake up. I have plenty of time to sleep. I end up getting another like 6 hours of sleep or whatever. Get picked up, and I go to give my last talk. And I give my last talk. And then the thing that I was really waiting for, which is what we talked about last week, is I got to go experience Holy Kurbana, like their
nice,
mass.
Cool, very cool, yeah.
Just a slight recap, just for you, because I know we hadn't had a chance to listen to last week's yet, but like mostly similar, just a lot more sung. Like everything is sung. One of the coolest things, like the priest sings almost the whole mass. There's a lot of call and response. Like priest sings a line, it's kind of like we do. The Lord be with you and with your spirit, but
the whole mass,
better, beautiful music, like played with instruments. Like not just a cappella, and like the congregation knows their parts, and so like just beautiful, beautiful mass, really cool to experience that. And then we had adoration later, and I talked a little bit about it with Father Benoj last week, but one of the coolest things that I'll just highlight again. I know, sorry if you listened last week, but one of the things that I wanted to share with you, because you're usually a priest, not today. You're usually a priest, and
yes.
During adoration, typically at like youth conferences, there's famous pictures of your favorite priest, Father Mike Schmitz, going around and like holding the monstrance up and like putting it to a kid's head, and like they have a incredible experience of the Lord, right?
Yeah.
It was different there. Well, where they were like, yeah, that's Jesus, but like Jesus is also in the person of the priest. So the two priests that were there walked around, and instead of like blessing with the monstrance was still there. And it's still what we were focused on. But every single person, like 200 something people at this point, like the priest came and laid hands like on our foreheads and prayed for us. And like,
that's nice.
Dude, like, I said earlier how rare like this feeling of connection to God and his church and all this stuff. Like to have 2 in 2 days is unbelievable. Like I just because it was a different experience and like just highlighting a different truth. Like the primary truth that I usually see highlighted is like Jesus in the monstrance in the body, blood, soul, and divinity there. But like it was a cool thing, especially with people, you and everybody listening knows that I've had some struggles with priests in the past. So it's like to have the laying on of hands, which we typically associate it with like you becoming a priest, right?
Right.
But that like, just a blessing from Jesus through the priest was just a beautiful moment, and like, I just loved it.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, it's beautiful, and there's something powerful about the priest doing that. Also, like in the presence of the Eucharist as well, and after you've been praying and you're open to it, that's really cool. I'm happy for you, because I actually was just gonna think, that's a particularly blessed gift for you, because of you've had to deal with priests, sometimes even me, who have not been like the best examples at times, and I
believe me, you're not near the top of the list of the worst that I've experienced. You're a solid like 17th.
Yeah. So anyway, the point is just kind of experiencing the priesthood, like qua priesthood. Like this is, even though some men have really messed it up in terrific ways, just like the priesthood is still this good gift that Christ gives us and comes to us through the priest. And that's a perennial, truth. And to experience that, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. So the rest of the day, we kind of had like the closing mass and the closing adoration, and that was kind of the close of like the spiritual, like the primarily spiritual side of the conference. But then in the afternoon, it was like essentially over, but they like kind of brought it together with, they were having like a national youth band for the Sierra Malabar, right? And this was their launch. So there was like a big like celebration, like all the parents came from big old party to celebrate the end of the conference. And like this one young lady sang the Hallelujah, I heard there was a secret chord, like that one. She performed that one. Yeah, little teenager, I'm guessing, right? And then next, like a big group of the young ladies performed a dance, and it was like Indian style dancing, right? Yeah, but to like to one of their holy songs. So like in Malayalam, like in that language, just so cool, man. Like it was beautiful. Yeah. And then the band came out, and they're like, the praise and worship band, but also did some like, kind of hype stuff. Just so much talent in the young church in the Sierra Malabar, right, in Ireland. So cool. After that night, we went out to dinner again, and I went out with like the whole team, and they were laughing at me eating again. I got fish this time and like a almond milk sauce. It was so good. Just such a great thing. Couple other things about the trip before we close up here with talking about our last little our location that I've been teasing this whole time.
Very excited for this.
So I get to the hotel, and it's late, on this first night, and I'm trying to find a place to plug in my phone. And I had to play this game that I played pretty often over this trip. Is this place fancier than I'm used to, or more foreign than I'm used to?
Hard to tell. Yeah,
because like a lot of like fancy hotels that I've gotten to stay at when other people pay is that I'm looking for plugs. I'm looking for plugs in the lamps. I'm looking for plugs. Like I can't find any, and then I'm like, oh no, I'm in a different country. They don't have American plugs. It's all completely different over there. So, but I'm so tired that I was just like, I'll deal with it in the morning. Did you like, there's a lot of things I had to learn. I had to learn about like time zone changes. I had to learn about how customs worked. I'd never done that. I had to learn how
you've never been overseas before.
Never been overseas before.
So okay, yeah.
I had to learn if my credit card would work. I had to learn how tipping worked. I had to learn all these new things, and I felt so prepared, but I didn't think about plugging my phone in. I didn't know this.
You didn't get an adapter?
No, I did not. So the next morning, I go downstairs, and I'm like, another theme of the weekend I was there. Hello, I'm a dumb American. Can you please help me? And everyone was so nice. They had plenty of them ready to go. They had all these adapters. They're like, here you go, idiot. And I'm like, thank you. And I'm in a castle feeling incredibly stupid.
Yes.
The other thing was the shower.
Okay.
So I won't go into too much detail, but it was very strange. There was like the two options were like, how like a lot of showers have like the thing that you can pull away from the wall and like kind of point towards your body, and that's how you shower, right?
Yeah, like the wand. Yeah.
Yeah. Or it had the one that like completely from above my head, like going straight down on me. Like not like from the wall like we used to, but like it was pointing at the top of my skull.
Like it's raining on you.
Right. So I'm looking at these two things, and I'm like, okay. And I don't see any buttons. I don't see any knobs. I don't see anything. And can't figure it out. Again, very tired. I'd been in a plane all day. I needed a shower before I went to sleep. Couldn't find it. I'm like closing the shower door. I'm like looking outside. Like, are there buttons out here? And again,
you're like clapping.
I'm like foreign or fancy. I don't know. I don't know what it is. The plug ended up being foreign. This one was, I think, fancy because it ended up being like, there's like a rod that everything's connected to. And you had to like the end of the rod could turn, and one was hot and cold. The other was also hot and cold, but it's like one sent it to the little wand thing and one sent it to the top. It took me 15 minutes to figure out how to take a shower. And the first night I couldn't figure out anything but the wand. So I'm like nasty from flying on American Airlines and being in airports for 24 hours. Like I was awake for 30 hours on the way there. And ended up doing the whole shower with the wand, and it wasn't until the next day that I figured out. I was like, okay, I feel real stupid. I gotta redeem myself, and I figured it out. So it was just very funny the whole time. And one thing that I noticed, like when I went to the pub with Jacob to get the Guinness, like I just had this overwhelming feeling the whole time I was there. It's like, I don't want to be the loud, annoying, dumb American. And I just had that in my mind the whole time.
Sure.
And then finally, like 24 hours in, I'm like, wait, that's what I am at home. Why am I trying so hard to be someone different?
Yeah, come on, Taylor.
So I just gave into it and ended up having a blast. So
good. I'm glad. I'm glad you also didn't have to, like, because going down to the desk at the hotel to say like, hey, is there a plug or adapter that I can have? Like, that's a normal question. Going down there and saying, can you show me how to use my shower? That's how you get arrested. Go to like Irish prison for forever. So I'm glad you figured it out yourself. That's good. I'm glad.
I was determined. I was like, I have to do this. So the next day, I get plenty of sleep. I learned my lesson. I got to the airport very early, went through customs, went through all that stuff. I bought, Irish toys for my kids.
Nice.
And then I did?
Like plushy potatoes, or like what were the
very close. Soccer ball, some lambs with shamrocks on them. Yeah, you're very close.
Nice.
So playing cards that we had to Google how to play Go Fish because it's been 25 years for me and they had never played before. So very good times. So I don't know the rules. What happens here? My 6-year-old looking at me like so confused because we've changed the rules 8 times. Like, I don't know, sweetie. I'm just learning as we go. But then I have learned my lesson. I did not go to any lounge. I went and ate my breakfast sandwich, which was just 2 big pieces of bread with bacon and ham. That's how they do breakfast over in Ireland.
I'm down. That sounds great to me. That's all the food groups.
Right. Yeah. I go right to my gate 2 hours early. And sure enough, an hour later, will Taylor Schroll please report to the gate? I get
yes,
upgraded.
I will.
I get upgraded. I get my chair. I'm super not stressed out. I learned that it's 10 hours on the way back because something about the world being round and winds is 2 hours longer on the way back. It was great. I get home super late. We're delayed. I get real grumpy, but it's fine. I finally get home. That is the story of my trip to speak to a bunch of Indian kids in the middle of Dublin, Ireland.
That's amazing. I'm really glad you got to do that. That's so cool.
Me too. It was fun. Thanks for chatting with me. I know there was a lot of me today, which some people would argue is all the time. Usually it's more 50-50, but I appreciate you indulging me today. And for indulging me, we're going to close with this. I have one little treat for you. The little nugget that we've been throwing out through here.
Okay, good, yeah.
One of the things that made me worried going into this event, this is my first ever international event. When I first got the email, I wasn't even sure if it was real. I thought it was somebody trolling me because who invites me to speak in Ireland? It's just a strange thing. Especially when I saw that the event was hosted at a Church of Scientology center. What do you know about the Church of Scientology?
I know some of the history of it's L. Ron Hubbard is the founder of that one, right?
Yes.
And he's I'm gonna put this very mildly, an interesting character.
That is
an interesting
that's
history.
Fair. That's fair. Yeah.
And that Scientology itself is an interesting kind of faith. And it's not something, so we wouldn't consider them as, Catholics even to be, Christian in any sort of sense. It's its own thing. It's an odd place to have a Catholic conference. I think that'd be fair to say. Not not what I would expect.
Right. So weird enough that I thought it was like I was getting trolled about the whole thing. Like it seemed
fair enough. Yeah. Fair assumption.
American Roman Rite Catholic going to speak to an Indian Catholic rite in Ireland at a Church of Scientology center. Like that sentence is wild. Like it's a wild sentence.
Very weird Mad Lib book that someone put together.
Yeah, that's what it sounds. Yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. So I went in and trying to be as you're being now, trying to be cordial and trying to be
no reason to be a jerk.
Right, keep things to myself, but I'm curious as well. I'm a curious human being. So I get and I'm asking, like, how does this work? What's going on here? How did this happen?
How much is science? How much is ology? Like, how is this,
Because
what's the mix here?
All I knew about it, like my only knowledge going in is like 25 years ago, before Top Gun Maverick, we all thought Tom Cruise was crazy because of his Scientology stuff and some of the crazy things we had a Church of Scientology in my neighborhood, and they were incredibly secretive. It was like a secret thing. We called them a cult growing up. Like there's just kind of a weirdness about, and kind of some secretiveness about it. So it's mysterious, right?
Yes.
So I go there and I'm curious. Ultimately, the answer was why is it there? Is because the Syro Malabar Church is very small. There's a lot of people, but they don't have a ton of cash flow. They don't have a ton of buildings. They're actually not allowed to have a ton of buildings. Like they're not allowed to have their own churches. They have to have like mass centers, like just because of secular government reasons. Like they're doing what they can to survive and thrive in a place that's not too friendly to Catholics, right? So they don't have big centers to host. I mean, like, so there was like 250 kids throughout the weekend, but like on Sunday for the concert, there was like, I don't know, 400, 500, 600 people there. Like, and it's a big auditorium. So we're there, and like the staff is all Scientology. It's like when we're getting like my fancy coffees. I thought of you while I was getting my fancy coffee. They made me like flowers or something on top of my coffee. I was like, oh, this is nice. Father Anthony drink,
Yes. Look at how dainty and it is.
But then like the sound guys and the tech guys and the hosts and all these people, like they work for the Church of Scientology, right? Yeah. So over the course of me being there, they'd come up to me and they'd ask me questions because I'm like I stand out at this event, so everywhere I go, people are looking at me. People come and talk to me. It's great. I love it. Right, the extrovert in me loves it. So I end up having a bunch of conversations with some of these guys in Scientology, and dude, so kind, so genuine that one of them gave me some literature about Church of Scientology, he's evangelizing, like he's doing what we're supposed to do for our faith, right? Like they're doing the thing. They're putting up their best face. They're just so nice. And then the second day that I'm there, one of the guys that I talked to the day before, kind of a little bit, came up and said, "Hey, this is a release form for media use. Like we'd like to use. We have a TV station, just like Catholic churches has EWTN and all this stuff. Like the Church of Scientology has a like TV station, and they're like, we like to like post stuff. Like, can we have your permission to post your talks?
Yeah,
Anthony, I'm going to be on Irish Church of Scientology television, preaching the gospel.
That was not on my 2024 bingo card. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't not on there. Yeah,
crazy.
Even God himself was like, "Oh, that's a surprise."
Didn't see that one coming. He can predict floods, but not me being on Scientology.
He's like,
television.
"Oh, hey, I must have missed that. What happened there?"
Yeah. So that's new. I'm kidding. And then as I'm leaving, like one of the guys comes over, and he's from the States, and we end up talking about it for a while, and we finally have the conversation of like, what do y'all believe? What's the main thing that y'all do? And like, so I learned about it. It was just this cool thing where I thought it was like, I assumed it was going to be kind of confrontational or awkward or weird. And it just wasn't. Like they're just so nice. We believe different things, but like it was just nice. So it ended up being like what sounded like a really weird thing going in to like, now I'm on their TV.
It's, even if you have different beliefs, you can connect to them like on this human level and have a nice conversation. It's a little bit different. It reminds me of our big Catholic youth conference here in Pittsburgh. We host it always at this Salvation Army camp. And actually about the same size as your thing. And the people who run the sound and everything, they're Salvation Army. And, we still talk and chat. And there's a little bit more connection faith-wise, there that we can do a little bit more of that. But there's no reason why you can't just like talk to people and be like normal and, share some stuff. And no one's hurt. No one's like abducted. Like it's like, this is good. There's nothing wrong with this.
Right. One of their main tenets, which is interesting because you'll know exactly what I mean when I say it, but it was kind of interesting talking to the Irish kids about it because they were curious too. One of the primary tenets of the Church of Scientology is freedom of religion. Like one of their primary tenets is exactly what I experienced. Like, we want to support you and your faith tradition, whether you're Catholic or Baptist or Church of Ireland, like
Yeah.
it's one of their core tenets, which is a core tenet of like we fight for it as Catholics, but it's a core tenet of our country, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I said that freedom of religion, and the kids were like, "What are you talking about?" Because it's not as much of a thing there. Like they have a state religion, and they're kind of being suppressed. So I thought that was really interesting that it was like, because Church Scientology is an American born thing, but it's, big over there. It was just this really interesting connection of like, oh, like this is one of your core tenets. So like, I know ecumenism is more like Christians and Christians, but like interfaith dialogue kind of thing. Yeah. Like it's a part of who they are. And I just, I can disagree with some of the other things that they believe or promote, but like that core value of theirs is what I experienced. And I just really appreciated it.
Yeah. And they hosted these Catholics who don't have a place to go. And, God sees that. That's a good thing that they did. So, and you sneakily are evangelizing them all. They're all going to convert after seeing your talks on their TV.
Yeah. Not the first one, but maybe the second or third talk. No one's being converted by that first talk. First talk was right. All right. Well, that's the trip. Thanks for indulging me, listeners. Thanks for indulging me, Father Anthony. I hope this was it was enjoyable for me. It was such a big story that I just wanted to share it. And we usually don't do stories this long, and we usually ask Father Anthony how he's doing, but today it was all about me.
Good. This is great. So I'm all caught up with you. I don't have to call you until like next month, and we don't have to talk. Exactly. So this is 2 birds with 1 stone. Yeah, I did the friendship and I did a podcast. Easy. Yeah, big win for me.
Yeah, what's different about that? That's our normal relationship.
That's also true. That's also true, man.
On that note, I'm Taylor Schroll. That's Father Anthony McMillan Sciarappa. I'll be back next week. He'll be back in a month. See ya. Thank you all for watching and listening today. I hope that you enjoyed today's storytelling type episode just about the ups and downs of my adventures over to Dublin, Ireland. I learned a lot on the trip. Hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. A lot of you were asking about it, and I just figured I'd ask or answer a lot of the questions that you have asked. I hope that you enjoyed Father Anthony hanging out. He was in a nice, relaxing, enjoyable mood today. He kind of got to take a back seat on the podcast, which I think he enjoyed as well as I did, sharing the stories with you. So if you enjoyed it, please subscribe wherever you are watching or listening. If you're just listening on the podcast, go check out our YouTube channel. We've got recorded talks. We've got our pop culture series, all stuff that doesn't exist just on your podcast feed. That is youtube.com/Forte Catholic. Thank y'all, and we'll see you very soon. Love you.